Hello and welcome, I am that James guy, and today we are doing a second of our new series on HOI4 multiplayer guides. This time, this week, it is the Soviet Union, and we are going to be cracking on with that. I've taken on quite a bit of feedback from the Germany guide, so we are going to be implementing that today, and hopefully we will see a bit of a better production value. I know. Big words. But first of all, we are going to be looking at the focus order. So let's jump into that. So, focus order time. I've got here in front of me a little list as well of the focus order, so I know exactly what I want to say, all prepared and everything. Basically, most of the Soviet focus tree is kind of, well, to put it frankly, a bit naff. Nearly everything in this middle section is practically useless in a multiplayer game, and most of the stuff on the left is practically useless, and the stuff on the right is mostly practically useless, other than the fact you get the tech slot and you can get rid of your purge penalty. So, without further ado, what order should you be doing? Well, first up, you should always start with Stalin Constitution for the political power, and I will have the full PP spend, and we'll be doing that immediately after the focus order. But first of all, Stalin Constitution into Socialist Realism, 1, 2, to get a bunch of political power, and we will touch back on why we're doing that with the PP spend section as well. After those two, you can shift in and grab a 5-year plan, for just basically for 4 civilian factories. It's really useful. Factories are always good. And then, assuming you are doing a tank build, which this guide does assume, you're going to want to then just whip down the positive heroism tree to the extra research slot. The recruitable population is nice, but not really that great. The 10% research speed is excellent. Having Konstantin Rokossovsky, pronunciation not guaranteed, for the Armor Genius is also very, very strong. And then, of course, tech slots. Tech is always a winner. After that, you want to grab the armament effort for the 4 free mills and the teensy-weensy bit of army experience. Then it's just a case of picking up the free infrastructure from Improved Railway Network. If you're lucky, then you will get that infrastructure. It is random. It does change as time goes on. If you get very lucky, you can get those in nice places. In the Saturday multiplayer game this week, I was exceptionally lucky, and one of the upgrades went to Stalingrad, so I ended up with 10 out of 10 infra in Stalingrad, which was actually peak optimal luck, effectively. And I also ended up with it in one of the 60% ones. I think it was Saratov that ended up at 90%. That was very, very good. After that, you effectively... there's nothing you want to grab. Aviation Cult, useless because you're not building planes. New Soviet Man, useless because you're not building planes. Transpolar Flights, useless because you're not building planes. An ocean-going navy. I mean, if you need 2 research bonuses to battleships as the Soviet Union, you've done something exceptionally incorrect. So the way I like to do it is to basically just hang the focus for as long as possible, and then go into doing the Great Purge around April, maybe May 1938, so that you can keep your stats up for as long as possible in the Spanish Civil War. As soon as you finish the Purge, you go down and do Rehabilitated Military and Military Reorganization, and then you again sit and wait with your focus tree until the Finnish Winter War. And as soon as you start the Finnish Winter War, you do Lessons of War, straight down to Closed City Network, and then you're done with your focus tree. You can just hang your focus tree for PP, and if you need to, you can fire up any of the permanent bonuses, the continuous focus bonuses. If you're feeling exceptionally sort of excited, you can then do Transpolar Flights, Ocean-going Navy, found the PCDI, Anti-Fascist Diplomacy down to annex Tanatuva and improve the Stalin line, but honestly the PP is worth more in most instances, because all of these claims that you get from Anti-Fascist Diplomacy you get for free when Germany does the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which is effectively the way you want to go about doing that. So there's your overview of your focus tree and the order you want to go in. And next up, PP. Welcome back. So we're now going to look at our PP spends. Basically, there's not a lot of room for maneuver here. Because you're taking Stalin Constitution Socialist Realism early on, you get quite a lot of PP going quite quickly. So my preferred route for PP spends is the first one is War Economy, which you do 70 days into the game, the moment Stalin Constitution finishes. Then your second PP spend will be on going up to Free Trade for that sweet 5% research speed bonus and the 5% bonuses to construction and factory output. Plus, it allows you to do a lot of trade with the allies who should be buying from you to massively boost your economy. After that, you will fire up your second batch of PP gain from Socialist Realism, which you can then fire into your Captain of Industry to continue booming your civs really, really hard. Next up is going to be your elusive gentleperson, Vazvilod Merkulov, who will give you the second operative slot, or third operative slot, depending on how heavily you've gone into your intel agency. This is hugely beneficial because it allows you to get 3 spies, which means you can steal mechanized from Canada, who quite often will be researching that early. And stealing that saves you the tech slot, which we'll come back to later. If you're not going for the stealing mechanized sort of build and or idea, you do gain a second, you can move your PP order up slightly and instead grab the heavy tank designer Okmo, which is something you will want to be doing anyway. I personally prefer elusive gentleperson into the mechanized steel, then picking up my heavy tank designer, my mill theorist for the land doctrine research, and then basically you can just flit around and pick up whatever you want at this point. You end up flooded in PP. The industrial concern is very helpful. If you want it, you can pick up an infantry equipment designer or the motorized equipment designer to get the bonuses for mechanized or infantry stuff, and you can pick up your army and high command people. My preferences are basically no one under Chief of Army, but you do want to make sure you pick up Rokossovsky and the army regrouping person and the concealment person. These 3 are very useful. But yeah, that's pretty much it for PP. There's not a lot for you to spend it on. You can do quite a lot with your, obviously spending your PP on your prospect for resources. You're sort of free to do whatever you want. I like to fit in a promises for peace and a war propaganda against Japan, but you have so much PP, the world is your oyster, effectively. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at tech. So let's go look at that. So let's take a look at tech. And I've brought up my notepad here with my tech order that runs until about 1940, late 1940, and it's pretty easy to follow. You want to be picking up your electromechanical engineering, basic machine tools, and your heavy tank 1 in your first 3 techs, bearing in mind that your heavy tank 1 you want to get licensed from France just to get that a bit quicker. Then from there it's effectively industry heavy with construction, mechanical computing, dispersed, which is my preference industry-wise, tools, construction, dispersed, basically keeping up on the industry and research bonuses until about here, once you've got computing machine. At that point, I like switching my land doctrine up, leaving the joys of mass assault and picking up either mobile warfare or superior firepower. My preference is always mobile warfare for Russia with the heavy tanks, and then you can leave one of your tech slots pretty much working down the doctrine bonuses. And that's pretty much it. The full tech order is on the right here, and this takes you up to the point where you can pretty much pick up whatever you want. So that is published downstairs. Other things you want to prioritize are your support companies, picking up your logistics company, expanding your engineer, and armoured cars and gun tech so that your tanks have the best recon company and the best mechanised you can get. And that's pretty much it for tech. So now, let's look at construction, followed by the intelligence agency. So, construction. And how do you handle construction as the Soviet Union? Well, it's pretty simple. You want to, first of all, delete your dockyards in Leningrad. That is always step one. They're kind of useless. Then you want to pick up max civilian construction in both Leningrad and Moscow, and you want to convert all of the mills in Leningrad and in Moscow, or vice versa, to civilian industry. And then make sure that Moscow and Leningrad are going first. Doing it in this order means that you don't have to faff around, and you can queue up the Moscow and Leningrad civ construction in your nicest infrastructure provinces while you're also converting the industry there. It's a very helpful way of doing that order. And then, basically, it's civilian factory button, high infrastructure provinces, and off we go. That is pretty much it. Just build civilian industry until either, and this does depend a bit on the rules of the game you're playing, until mid to late 1938 or 1939. You don't need to worry about booming mill factories early on, you just want to pop them when it feels sort of safe. And that difference in those rules does depend on whether Germany is allowed to declare war on you before the middle of 1941. So if they're just free to do it from whenever after the fall of France, or if Germany has to wait until 1941. If they have to wait, then you can get away with building your mills in 1939. If they're allowed to do it at any point, then your best bet is to start around mid to late 1938, around the time the Sudetenland focuses. That way you have a few more mills and you're not in danger of just getting dunked by the Germans when they rock everything out on you in the late part of 1940 and end up unprepared and not ready to go. And as this relates to construction, we're also going to talk about the intelligence agency here. You want to pick it up straight away, because that way your 5 civs are still on toaster economy. And once you've grabbed your agency, we are just going to turn time on and unpause. I'm ignoring the army and the other bits at the moment. Once you've got your intelligence agency sorted, and it will just take 30 days, it's a very clear order on what's optimal, but it does depend a little bit on whether you can steal mechanized from Canada, or if you're just going to be stealing industry bonuses. But the order is pretty fixed. First of all, the first thing you want to do, once you've got your spy agency, is immediately move into grabbing the blueprint stealing bonus, and then the invisible ink bonuses. Now we've got this, we can pause again. So you want to grab blueprint stealing and invisible ink, interrogation tactics, so you can get more intel from operatives you've captured, and then you just want to crack up the passive defense and grab the cryptology department so that you can start revealing people's ciphers. Obviously with a focus on the German, Romanian, and Hungarian ciphers. They're the people that you're mostly going to be fighting. And once you've stolen the mechanized from Canada, I like to just shunt all my spies into Hungary and steal their industry, basically. That's the way to go. Next up, we're going to be looking at industry production and other bits, so join me in a moment and we'll start discussing that. So, next on the list is the joys of production. And first things first, bear in mind that we did delete those dockyards, so with ships, honestly, cancel the Kirov and the other one, don't need those. Finish off the ones you've got, just because you can. Finish off the submarines, again, just because you can. If you want to know, I'm shift-clicking it down to infinity and then adding just one just to make that slightly less clicks. Make sure they all base into Leningrad. There is Leningrad, and then basically that's it for the ships. You don't need to build any. What you start with is perfectly fine, perfectly good enough. Where's Leningrad disappeared off to? There it is. Move the navy that you've got, other than the Black Sea Fleet, all to the same place. Just group it up so it's nice and safe, and that's that basically sorted. Once you're done with those, you can just whack it onto convoys, and you're pretty much set. With the actual rest of the production, bearing in mind that we're converting 6 plus 7, I think it is. Yeah, 6 plus 7 factories from mill to sieve. We're actually going to end up with only 19 factories, which is only one more than you start with. Personally, how I like to do this is delete the planes. They're kind of surplus to requirement. Bearing in mind that we're going to be doing mechanized, I like to just have one on the light tank and one on the motorized, just to build up a little bit. Then a couple on artillery and support equipment, and then pretty much everything else on guns, just so that that can be sort of dealt with and all under control. And then as we lose those factories, our gun production will go down, but it will even out at 19, 20, 21, 22, that's 13 factories less, brings us down to 7, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 6. Yeah, that's perfect, because by that point you can stop building the light tanks and the motorized anyway. So that's pretty much perfect. And then as you get more mills later on, you just want to throw all of them onto mechanized and onto heavy tanks. And at this point, we are going to just load the save game from this week's multiplayer, where I was actually playing as the Soviet Union. And this save is from, I think it just flicked in front of our eyes, September of 1940. Unfortunately, in this game, Germany made it, 12th of September 1940. So, unfortunately, in this game, some mistakes were made by the Germany player, and, they appear to have been clapped by the Allies over yonder. But you can see my setup was pretty strong, and for argument's sake, we have a year until the war. I've got another 12 infantry in training and plenty of equipment. I've got my tanks slowly going in, and all of my production is basically going on tanks, heavy SPAA, and mechanized. I am actually overbuilding guns because we actually started memeing a little bit, and I was lend-leasing the Allies because it all went a bit strange. But realistically, I should probably only have 20 factories on guns, a little bit on the AA on artillery, the armoured car probably needed less on this as well, playing retrospective, and then everything should really be on tanks. In this game, I'm also doing something very weird. I was trading with France, which you wouldn't normally do, but because they were winning, that was fine. And then I'm obviously 112 plus 104 plus the 476 minus 381, that should have been fine. Steel, again, I was buying from France. Bearing in mind that the Allies are very heftily trading with me as well, so it hasn't really ruined my production. Okay, just all gonna sort this out slightly to make sure this was optimal. But yeah, all factories go into tanks, and I would have ended up with around 24 heavy tank divisions of a pretty good template for a 14-4, what am I talking about? For a mobile warfare tank division. And then for my infantry, I was using these line divisions, literally just shovels with an artillery and a shovel. And then I also had some turbo cheap ones with just an AA in them, which I actually think these are all line, yes, because I was going to build the AA ones later, and they aren't trained yet. I sort of stopped playing effectively at the end. But my basic troop disposition is Stalin line, forward position in the forests of the Baltic, which will retreat out, back up this way, just effectively taking casualties and forcing the Germans to fight you so that you destroy some of the local infrastructure. Same in the marshes, actually. These should have been in these tiles here. Looking at this more properly. Same in the forests and the river here. This is one state, so as long as they're fighting here, it will destroy the infrastructure. You can hang a division in low and along this river if you desire it, but honestly, I think it's too easy to just run into problems. So you could theoretically run a defense like this here, but it leaves you open to getting flanked more easily and making sure you're not able to retreat your divisions back and make sure that these guys can reinforce the Stalin line. I like to hang some tanks just here, or in this tile. Germany players quite often run into this trap where you can then just swing up and also down from this side and encircle in this sort of plain section here. So I like hiding a few tanks here behind this forest. I also, most of my tanks aren't out yet, but I would have tanks in the Riga area, the Vitebsk, Smolensk area, probably one around Chernigov, Gomel, and using them in pairs, Kiev, Dnepropetrovsk and Krivoy Rih, and sort of just ready to counter the German tanks and also make opportunistic strikes against them. I was also very lucky in this game that I got Memel, which actually worth more to me than Bessarabia was, given Bessarabia had one whole dockyard. Oh, I had a mill in Bukovina, so that's not all that bad. But yeah, troop disposition, troop templates. Also, having a player Finland in this game meant that I had to have troops up here in Finland as well. And that's pretty much it. This game, it was very, very bizarre. Germany had a shocker, frankly, so the Allies really did dick him over. Either way, that's it from me. Hopefully this video has helped you learn a bit more about how to set up and prepare the Soviets. And if you want to see some of this in action, I am going to be uploading this multiplayer game as a series of highlight reels highlighting the Winter War, the Spanish Civil War, which I actually won, and also some of the prep I was doing while doing those things, and highlighting some of the major moments like France encircling and killing all the German tank divisions. But if you do want to see some multiplayer in action, do remember to check me out on Twitch. If you've enjoyed this guide, please do like and subscribe, and I will be back soon with a guide on espionage proper, and also division design and micro proper. Either way, it's been a pleasure, and I will see you guys next time. Ta-ra for now.